Hello fashion lovers, welcome to the channel. NCM Afrik-Ann here. Today's fashion DIY will be on how to make this beautiful asymmetric neck dress. So without wasting time, let's get started. So to make this dress, you are going to be needing a plain and a patterned fabric. The plain fabric I'll be using to make this dress is called Duchess fabric. You can use plain crepe, you can use satin or any plain fabric of your choice. And the patterned fabric I'm using for this is called Adire. You can use Ankara or any patterned fabric of your choice. So the first thing to do, go ahead and fold your fabric into four. So after folding your fabric into four, at the top of your fabric, make a straight line like this. So this line is going to serve as the shoulder line. So the next thing to do is to mark half of my shoulder measurements. My shoulder measurement is 14 inches. So I'll divide 14 inches by 2, which is 7 inches. So mark your shoulder measurement. So from where your shoulder measurement stops, just go ahead and mark your sleeve length. Because this is a cut together shoulder, we'll be marking our sleeve length immediately after our shoulder measurement. The sleeve length I want for this dress is 10 inches, but I'll be minusing 2 inches from the 10 inches because I'll be adding a band of 2 inches with the plain fabric. So from this point, I'll just come down by 1.5 inch for my shoulder slope. So after creating my shoulder line, the next thing to do is to make my sleeve opening. So for my sleeve opening, I'll be using 9 inches for my sleeve opening and I'll add 1 inch for my sewing allowance. So at that point, I'll make a horizontal line and that is going to serve as my bust line. So the next thing to do, I'm going to mark out my hip line. So after marking the hip line, I'll go ahead and mark out my desired dress length and I'll be adding 2 inches for the folding allowance. So after doing all that, I'll come over to the shoulder line to mark the neck measurement. And for the neck width, I'll be using 4 inches. I'll be using 4 inches for the neck width and 3 inches for the neck depth. So after marking out the neckline, come over to the bust line and place your bust measurement. That is after dividing your bust measurement by 4. So after dividing mine by 4, I got 9. So I'm going to mark 9 inches on my bust line and I'll be adding extra 2 inches for ease allowance and 1 inch for sewing allowance. So I'll be adding extra 3 inches to my bust measurement. So from the bust point, I'll come down by 2.5 inches. Although this is a very free dress, but I would like this dress to have a little shape. And to achieve that, from the bust point, just step down by 2.5 inches and measure the total amount of what you have on your bust point. So at this point where I came down by 2.5 inches, I'll be minusing 1.5 inches from whatever thing I got on my bust measurement. And on the hip line, I'll mark my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches for ease and 1 inch for sewing allowance. And for the hemline, I'll use exactly the same measurement I used for the hip line. So after doing all that, just go ahead and connect all the points. So before cutting out, on the shoulder line, I'll be adding 1/2 inch. So this is going to serve as the joining allowance. So after adding the 1/2 inch as a joining allowance on the shoulders, I'll just go ahead and cut this out. So after cutting, you should have your pattern looking like this. So the next thing to do, just go ahead and separate the two patterns. So it's time to make the original neckline for this dress. So on one side of the shoulders, I'll come out by 3 inches, but you can make yours 4 depending on how off you want the shoulders. And from this point, take a look at where my finger is pointing. From this point, I'll mark 6 inches downwards. And from this point, I'll make a curve to meet all the points. So please add ½ inch around the neckline before cutting out. So the next thing I'll do, I'll place my ruler like so. So watch where I place my ruler, and I'll make a very straight line. I'll make a very straight line from this point down to the hemline. So after making a straight line down to the hemline, I'll go ahead and cut out the neckline for the dress. So after doing that, I'll bring the two patterns together with the wrong side facing each other. So after placing them on each other like this, I'll be using the front neckline to trace out the back neckline. So it's time to make the interface for the neckline, and I'll be using this light gum stay to make the interface. So the right side of the gum stay is facing my table while the wrong side is facing up, and to place the fabric on the gum stay, the right side of my fabric is on the gum stay. So you need to be careful with this part. So I'll be tracing out the neckline on my gum stay. So after tracing the neckline on the gum stay, I'll go ahead and mark 2 inches around the neckline, and I'll be adding 1 inch for the sewing allowance. So you're going to be needing 2 of these for the front and the back part of your dress. So the next thing I'll do, I'll place these on my plain fabric and give this a very good press. So after creating the facing like this, I'll just keep this aside and I'll come back to my dress pattern. So I'm going to face my dress pattern like this. I'm going to place them together like this with the right side facing each other. After placing them like this, I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'll be joining them on the shoulders by ½ inch. And for the facing, I'll do the same. I'll place them on each other like so, and I'll sew the shoulders by ½ inch as well. So I've gone ahead to close the shoulders for the dress and the facing. So at this point, I'll go ahead and add the band for the sleeve, and the measurement for the band is 2½ inches on fold. So after fixing the bands on the sleeves, I'll turn this over to the wrong side. So the next thing I'll do is to place the facing on the neckline of the dress with the right side of my facing facing the wrong side of the dress. So just use some office pins to keep this in place before taking this to my sewing machine to sew this round by ½ inch. So after sewing with my scissors, I'll make some notches around the neckline, just as you can see me doing. Just make some notches around the neckline. So before turning the facing to the right side, I'll be using my pressing iron to bend the edges of my facing before turning over to the right side. So after giving the edges a very good press, I'll go ahead and turn this over to the right side. So before top stitching this on the dress, remember we still have these parts opened. So from this point, I'm going to measure where the design on the front will start from. Remember, this design extends to the back, so I'm going to place my tape from the back neckline and down to the hemline. I'll be using the measurement I got to cut out the length on my plain fabric, and the width of this is 5 inches. I also went ahead to add 1 inch that I'll be using to tuck in this into the neckline. So I'll just go ahead and fold this into 2 on the right side, and I'll go ahead and close this up by ½ inch. So after sewing, I'll just go ahead and turn this out to the right side. And after turning this over to the right side, I also went ahead to give this a very good press. So use your pressing iron and give this a very good press. So the next thing I'll do, I'll be marking where I want my design to start from and where I'm going to place my design. Remember, I made a line at the beginning. That line is going to guide me on where to place my design. So the design is going to start from the back neckline. It will come across the front neckline down to the hemline. So to fix in the design, I'm going to make a little opening of about 2 inches from this point. So I'm going to open up this part a little with my razor blade. So this is going to create a room for me to pass in my loop. So after creating the hole, I'm going to pass in my loop like this, and I'm going to push it in with about 1 inch. So I'm going to be stitching this in between the facing and the dress. So after fixing it like so, I'll just go ahead and top stitch the facing on the dress. So after doing that, I'll place the design on the initial mark I make that is serving as my guideline, and I'll be using my office pin to hold this in place before top stitching it on the dress. So after using my office pins to keep this in place, I'll just go ahead and top stitch this to the dress. So after top stitching, just go ahead and close up the 2 sides and hem the dress. So this is basically all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do so. Thank you, and see you in my next fashion DIY. Bye.